Hey everyone, welcome to the Bandits Show. This week we're looking back on week 2 of the NFL because we've had a second Sunday of football, and as you can see, it's all smiles from Luke and Paul who are joining me this week. Yes, I'll just walk back through it. We've had a lot more drama, and I think the most dramatic game is the one we'll start with. We've got the Falcons and the Cowboys in a showcase for the ages.
That was unless Atlanta did that on a very regular basis. Probably the funniest thing I've ever seen was them playing Ringa Ringa Roses around the football rolling towards them for the onside kick. That was just quality.
I do want to get to that, but just to start with Dallas's first half. Dallas had 3 fumbles in the first half. I think Dak had one. Zeke had one, and somebody else had a fumble. I can't remember who. And then, for whatever reason, Mike McCarthy has taken all the criticism for being too conservative he got at Green Bay and decided to go for 2 fake punts. These are the coaching decisions that get people sacked.
Coach Bones, ex-Rams, special teams coach. The only problem is he doesn't have Johnny Hekker throwing the football. Yeah, he was always doing it at the Rams, always drawing up wacky plays, and they worked a lot of the time, and they'll work for Dallas in the future. But obviously, that wasn't the right calls on the day, and they give Atlanta some good feel. But Atlanta didn't turn enough of those into 7, and ultimately that was what cost them.
It was sort of like the Mitch Trubisky game from week 1, but it was the entire Cowboys team couldn't play for 3 quarters, and then all of a sudden they had the fourth quarter where the Falcons looked completely drained.
Yeah.
And Dallas just woke up, and it resulted in I've got Dak's stat line. He was 34 for 47, 450 yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns.
I'd like to point out that he won me the fantasy game this
He
week.
also lost me the fantasy taking those 3 in at the 1, not giving a couple off to Zeke. That would have secured me that win against you, Ben.
I mean, like Paul mentioned, we've got to say about what I think is the luckiest onside kick recovery of all time.
There's no luck about it. It was incompetently defended.
I don't know. I
love to say that they just didn't.
Well, the entire Atlanta team lost their mind. Yeah. They just collectively lost their mind. Stood in a circle around the ball, and we're kind of doing some weird touchdown celebration, like we're warming the ball with our hands when Dallas fell on it.
The only thing I've got to defend Atlanta is that watching that kick go in, when he first kicked that ball, it looked like it was going to go about 3 yards and stop. So, in reality, Atlanta were right to stay away from that ball, because as soon as they touch that ball, it's live.
Once he got to 9 yards,
I know.
They should have changed.
I think it was Hayden Hurst was just stood staring at it, and it was just slowly going past, and it was like
they were mesmerised, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like, look into my eyes.
You did just need to fall on top of it.
Oh,
yeah. And then obviously it resulted in Greg the Leg hitting the winner.
Yeah.
You just knew he was going to kick it, didn't you?
Yeah, that was it. As soon as he came on, although again they should have been. I think they should have been closer. It shouldn't have even been a field goal that he might have missed. They got the big play from CeeDee Lamb, and then they stopped, whereas they had plenty of time on the clock and they had timeouts.
Yeah. I think they were just happy. I think they were just happy that he was going to kick it. They just trusted him.
I don't care if my kicker's Justin Tucker. I'd rather take a 30-yarder than a 40-yarder.
True.
I get it.
But if you're confident in your kicker and you've had a fumbling problem throughout a game, you are going to be a bit more. You know what I mean? On Madden, you always flick it to conservative running. Not about to break away the same. Yeah, taking it a bit easy.
On Madden, you go for that extra touchdown.
And you can never criticise a decision that leads to a win. If he missed it, criticise it all you want, but he kicked it, so it was the right choice. No, I think I'm not even sure if Atlanta got tired. I think they just kind of got scared, and they just expected it to happen again.
Yeah,
it's just like it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy for them, isn't it? They get up to a big lead, they're playing really well, and then the bottles go.
Yeah, they sort of, it's like the game's won by the third and they just stop.
They'd scored that many points and done that well. They'd won the game twice. And they only had to do one thing well in about 10 different situations, and that game was over, and they just didn't. They just couldn't put it away.
It didn't seem like they could run the ball in the second half. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't watching the entire game, but I don't know, it didn't. Like Gurley's numbers weren't eye-popping. They it didn't seem as if they could run the ball and control the clock, and they were obviously just giving it back to Dallas every time. And scoring 10 points in the second half, even if you have scored 29 in the first.
They scored enough points
back into it.
One question I'll put forward to is, what's your thoughts on Dallas's position on the season now? Because they've had a close loss against the Rams, who I think are a much better team, and they've had this weird close win against Atlanta. And I don't know if they're good or whether they're just...
They're going to
win the division. Easy win the division.
Well, if Eagles keep playing like they are, yeah.
I think it's only easy because every other team in the NFC East is shoddy at the minute.
Oh, of course, if they were in the NFC West, they wouldn't win it.
If they were in the NFC West, they'd be bottom of the division.
Yeah.
Comfortably as well.
Yeah. But this is, I don't know. They feel like a team that shouldn't be in the playoffs, but we all know how the NFC East goes.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be.
It's still early days.
Dallas. Yeah, it is still early days, and we have only had 2 games as opposed to.
And we've had no pre-season.
Yeah, but no, I'm a bit disappointed in Dallas. And only time will tell. This Sunday's a big test. Is it Sunday? Against the Seahawks.
Definitely, I think.
This is. I mean, if they're 1 and 2. All right, they're still going to make the playoffs because I think no matter what, they're going to finish above Philly. Because Philly are not looking good either. But yeah, if they were any other division, you'd be fearing that they weren't going to make the playoffs. And with the offense they have, you kind of need to expect the playoffs.
It's not offense that's a problem for them, is that it's stopping the other teams. And that's only going to be a problem in the postseason for them because the NFC is so poor. So they're going to rack up loads of points on the Giants, the football team. And they'll do enough to beat the Eagles. So really, there's probably 5 or 6 wins straight out the back there. So they only have to win 4 or 5 others, and they're quite comfortably qualified.
Yeah. Moving on, we'll go down to Tampa. Tampa and Carolina. I think Tampa have come out the gates after week 1. I mean, I think they looked reasonably strong on the defensive side in week 1. But this seemed, I mean, it's what we expected. You know, Carolina's in a rebuild. Yeah, it's a good win, which resulted in a 31-17 scoreline.
It's probably what you were expecting.
Yeah.
It's probably the result that you're expecting there. They were better than last week, and they're probably going to get better week on week as the season goes on. As I say, and probably every one of these things that we're going to talk about now, pre-season's over now. It's just the 2 pre-season games to start with counted. And they will get better because Brady will get into the system. He'll get used to his targets. What I think we may be seeing, though, is Gronk. What we're not seeing is Gronk. He does look to have aged. Now, that might just be he needs a couple more games under his belt. But did he have 1 target, and that 1 target led to an interception?
I'm not too sure. I know he's been sort of put down as a blocking guy for now.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure that during the game he was targeted once, and that pass was picked off.
Tom Brady does have an interception on his stat lines. He has 217 yards. He only had 2 incompletions, so it's a pretty accurate day out on the field for Tom.
Yeah.
TB12.
He got better, and he'll continue to get better as the season goes on.
Yeah, I mean, when you actually look and break stats down from this game, there's some stuff that really jumps out. And one thing is that the running game for both sides was actually quite on point when you think about it. Leonard Fournette has adjusted to this Bucs system quite well. 12 carries for just over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And even though McCaffrey didn't have as many yards, he had 60. He still had 2 touchdowns, and unfortunately suffered an injury.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I like Leonard Fournette. He's a good running back, and the Bucs did well to get him. We talked about it a few weeks ago. We were discussing rookie running backs and how they always transition into the league. And I suppose it lends itself to running backs in new systems. Here's the ball, run it downhill, run it there, and he's been around the league long enough to know what he needs to do. He's a clearly better running back than Ronald Jones. LaShawn McCoy looks nothing like what he used to be a few years ago.
No.
So I don't think it'll be long until it'll just be completely Leonard Fournette's backfield.
Yeah, it's just probably getting to the system and knowing what's happening.
Yeah, Jones is well ahead of him at the moment because he's been with the team for longer. But he's a quality performer, Fournette. I think he's had potentially some attitude issues, didn't he, at the end of his rookie year? He didn't get on with Coughlin or something.
I mean, who did?
Yeah.
No one got on.
Yeah, he did. He was a good old-fashioned coach, wasn't he?
Yeah, and again, when I say about stats, there was 3 separate receivers with over 100 yards receiving in the game.
Yeah. So he's spreading the ball about, isn't he?
Yeah. But obviously, like I said, Christian McCaffrey got hurt. Where do Carolina go from now until, I think, in 6 weeks' time when they get McCaffrey back?
I actually think it. Don't get me wrong, I don't think it'll help them. I think they'll lose games because of it. But I do think that not having him there forces Teddy to. It puts a bit more pressure on Teddy and a bit more expectation on Teddy. And he's got to sort of take some of that, some of the slack that's on now. And he's made plays in the few games, but he's also made some stupid mistakes. And he needs to really show up this year, because if Carolina end up with a losing record and they're low down in the draft order, he's potentially going to get replaced, even though he hasn't paid.
I think Carolina's probably going to look like the Chargers do, or did, in the sense of they'll probably keep Teddy for a few years. They might draft sort of QB that's not ready to start yet, and then let him learn this new system. Coming in a few years' time.
Well, they'll find out about him this year, won't they? So they'll have a really good idea at the end of the season whether they need to draft a quarterback or whether Bridgewater's the future, because they don't have to win an awful lot of games. Because there's not much expectation on them to start with. And with McCaffrey going down, there's even less now. I mean, really, if you would say the bottom teams in the league, you go Jets, football team, and Panthers, wouldn't you, on early showing? So that they're going to get a really nice high draft spot, which they could turn into multiple picks if they potentially. If it's the number 1 pick and they don't need the quarterback. And although it sounds daft with McCaffrey out for 6 weeks or so, his body's not taking an awful lot of hits in those 6 weeks. So they can perhaps manage him later in the season and save him for next year, perhaps.
I hope they don't. I need him for my fantasy team.
I think we've all got him if we've got enough fantasy teams at some point. Well, you're playing me this week, aren't you? I'm quite relieved, to be honest.
Yeah, tough one for you this week, man.
I don't know. I've still got Aaron Jones.
I've still got 4 outs.
Moving on again, I think this was the story that Jack was supposed to be joining us for. He was begging me to be on the show for. Kansas City versus the Los Angeles Chargers. A freak injury, which is the only way it can be described, to Tyrod Taylor.
Or an attempt murder.
Yeah, could have been an attempted murder. Justin Herbert may have hired someone.
Yeah, the doctor.
Which led which led to Justin Herbert being able to start against the defending Super Bowl champions. I mean, who doesn't dream of a first ever start like that?
First game for the Chargers in SoFi. Yeah, it was pretty special for him, and played well.
300
he did really well.
Yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 1 passing touchdown, and he did have an interception on his stat line.
That was
you know what? He looked exciting, didn't he? He looked like a new modern-day quarterback who makes things happen around him. He looked really exciting, considering that he'd got very few reps coming on into the game and in preparation for the game.
He had 0 reps with the starting team.
Really, really well. And he wasn't phased or overawed. And you just think, you know what? He might be okay. One game isn't really a massive body of work, is it? However, he did really well. And they were good to watch. I thought they were really exciting to watch. I thought the Chiefs were off a little bit, but that doesn't matter.
I thought were really poor. They didn't look like their usual selves. They didn't look like the team that opened up the season on Thursday Night Football.
No, but maybe that was the Chargers.
Yeah. I mean, that Chargers D is probably one of the best in the league.
Yeah,
and possibly the best thing on it.
You've got to say that. We'll know in the next 2 or 3 weeks whether it's the Chargers D that did that, or Kansas City had just basically the travelling had got to them, or something else had got to them, or they just had an off day.
I think it probably was the D, because looking at the pressures, I think the Chargers lead the league in pressures.
It's quality of pressures as well, isn't it? Yeah. It's no good pressuring a quarterback who then can escape and run for 15, 20 yards. It's being able to pressure them, but contain them. And you saw that when Kansas City came back, they lost containment, particularly on the right side of defence, because Mahomes kept going out that side and really testing them hard. And that's where they struggled. When they had him contained properly, and Kansas City was struggling that. They showed how to do it. Just keep him where you can see him and just don't let him hurt around in the backfield.
Yeah, I want to get back to Kansas in a second, but obviously I feel like the question that probably should go forward now is: do the Chargers go back to Tyrod and let Herbert keep sitting down, or do they give in to what the media are probably saying and stuff like that, and let this be Justin Herbert's team now?
If he wins 3 games while he's out and he goes 3-0, you can't take him out, can you?
I think Justin Herbert will not comfortably, but he'll have another good game against the Panthers. Not a very good defense, not a very good secondary. It's probably a great game for him to have. And I think sort of this time next week, he'll probably name his starter going forward.
Yeah. I mean,
there is a little parallel here, you know, for a rookie quarterback and the incumbent quarterback who was pretty good, puncturing a lung in a game, and then they came in, and that was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
That happened all the way back there. Drew Bledsoe, it's slightly different. He got absolutely walloped.
Yeah, he didn't get injected.
He didn't get injected. He was absolutely. It was like it was a big hit, and I think one of his ribs went into his lung and did it. So it's slightly different circumstances, but didn't do him any harm, did it? Well, it did Bledsoe harm, obviously, but it didn't do Tom Brady any harm.
There you go, Ben. Paul Bennett. Herbert's the new Brady.
Herbert's the next Brady. There we go. We've heard it, yeah.
That's a big kick. That's a, you know, if anybody wins 1 Super Bowl, that's an achievement. 6.
Wow. I mean, to be fair, we said, I think, the first ever episode of this, I put down Justin Herbert as my rookie to sort of have the best experience.
You did.
With the
organisation. I mean, you look at the Chargers, we've probably spoken about it in the past, but they've got a very, very good roster. They were, a few years ago, they beat the Ravens in Lamar's rookie year in the playoffs. And I think they lost to the Patriots in the divisional game. But Philip Rivers had a great year that year. I think they went 12-4. Then obviously the year after, they had a down year and they had a lot of injuries. So the Chargers have been renowned for it. But those players have all come back. They've got a good receiver core. They've got good running backs. I really like Joshua Kelly coming out. He looks like an exciting back. to strengthen the O-line, that defence. I think it probably is the best in football, and like I say, it's missing its best player. So Herbert's in a really good situation now.
Yeah. And then so let's go back to Kansas. Obviously, to use the old cliche, it's now a game of two halves. One of the biggest turnarounds would be Tyreek Hill, who in the first half had 0 receptions for obviously 0 yards, and in the second half had 5 receptions for 99 yards and a touchdown on top of that. They just broke loose, didn't they? It's Mahomes' hero ball at the end.
The Chargers didn't do enough in the first half. They had opportunities to put up more points and sort of stalled and didn't quite get there. And it always felt like the Chargers needed another 7, another 3, and Patrick Mahomes is always going to come back at some point in a game. He's always going to do something. He's always going to find Tyreek Hill.
He doesn't always beat.
No, never.
He's just a competitor, and he just doesn't always beat. Even when he is beat, he doesn't care. He doesn't. It just doesn't.
Have to go back to the divisional game against the Texans. What were they down like 21-0 in the first quarter, and then by half time, I think they were up 31-21. So I can't remember the exact scores, but such a quick turnaround, and that's how quickly that Kansas offense can do it. That you can just throw a bomb to Tyreek, and that's it. They've got 7, get the ball back, 7 more, and that's the way they do it down there.
Well, there's always space, isn't there, between the linebackers and the safeties, because they've got to respect Hills and even Hardman when he's on his pace. Yeah. So you've always got to respect that. So you've got to have some depth to your backfield, so it allows them to work underneath.
Yeah, obviously, I think what everyone was talking about at the start of the year, they seem, I mean, maybe not so much this week, but they seemed like they're fit for another deep playoff run. I mean, this was, no one counted them out this time, and we all watched what happened.
Kansas, for me, are the number 1 team in the NFL. The good thing for us, I think they're playing the number 2 team in the NFL on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Which should be an exciting game, which I'm sure we're all looking forward to.
This is that's definitely, obviously, game of the week this week.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, I would like to say Harrison Buckner kicked some unbelievable field goals in that game. He's hit 2 58-yarders. He had another 58-yarder that he drilled, and then he had a 53-yarder that he drilled, and it was all in the space of about, I don't know, like a minute. It was crazy. People talk about Justin Tucker and how he's way, way above everyone at that kicking level, but
not anymore.
No, this guy's pushing Tucker really close.
These are the new guys. Put them out for a 50-odd yarder, and they'll smash it.
58 yards, though. He was so comfortable. He drilled it. I mean, he hit that one I think it was the second half, and then overtime he's gone 53, 58 timeout, 58 game winner. I'm just like acting like nothing's happened. That's the difference between good teams and bad teams sometimes. It's just that guy kicking the extra points and field goals.
Yeah.
It's all phases. Good teams don't have a weakness. All phases, all 3 of them, they're good at. And that's why they win loads of games.
He did miss an extra point.
He was probably backheeling it, though, wasn't he?
Funny.
Backheeling it for a laugh.
Yeah.
And we can move on to, I think, another interesting game of the week was New England and Seattle Super Bowl 48 rematch that lived up to the hype, really. You know, we've got Cam Newton, who seems to have taken this New England system.
Comeback player of the year.
Really done it well.
Just saying.
You know, I mean, Julian Edelman had a great game. Obviously, Russell Wilson continues to just make an MVP case, even though we're 2 weeks in. And DK Metcalf having a game, he's becoming a really strong receiver. There was just performances all over the board, and I don't think if you was watching, you just couldn't take your eyes away.
No, it's Newton's just makes them into a different team. As much as you like Brady, they're a completely different team with Newton there because of the dual threat that he has. He's like a freight train when he runs the ball as well. And whoever won that or lost that and that performance, if he'd have scored that touchdown at the end, it wouldn't have mattered. It didn't make any team better or worse. They're both still fantastic teams, aren't they?
Yeah.
Excuse me a second. One of the dogs has got locked out and it's seriously not happy. It's an idiot. Sorry about that.
Yeah, do you know?
Go on, Luke, carry on.
I feel like he looks a bit slower. I don't know, maybe it's because I've not seen him play for a year and I'm watching people like Lamar and Kyler running around.
I don't think he's ever been... We always thought he was fast because he was one of the few sort of QBs that was willing to take it downfield like that. But yeah, like when you compare him to Lamar, it's nothing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to watch simultaneous clips of him at Carolina a few years ago, and then one's recently this year. I don't know. He just seems a bit slow. I mean, he's still lowering the shoulder and putting people on the back, which is what Cam always did.
I think because he's so big, he looks slower than a Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
But there's probably not a massive difference in the actual foot speed when they're on the ground. It's just one's got massive legs, so they don't have to rotate as quick, do they? But
it's what's very small for.
Kyler Murray, he's just like a huge. He's just got a helmet and these little legs underneath, hasn't he? And then he's got this like cheat code where he disappears and appears 20 yards to the left, and you don't know how.
Yeah, I think this was obviously after. I mean, week one was obviously quite good for Cam, but this was definitely Cam coming out party. 397 yards, and he had a passing touchdown. Like I said, if you look at the quarterback playing this game, and if you go to the other side, it's not as impressive with the yards, but it's still 288 yards with 5 passing touchdowns.
Cam's got such a big arm. Watching him throw them comebacks and 15-yard out routes, like, it's impressive to watch. Cam's always had a big arm, and that's still on show. Just how effortlessly he throws them routes. They always seem to be open on him, and yeah, he had a really good game.
Yeah.
One thing that I did find a bit strange. I didn't stay up and watch it. I had work, but I rewatched it the day after, and he got the ball down to the 13-yard line with 27 seconds left, and they didn't call the last time out. They went and spiked it, and it lost them 21 seconds, I think it was. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm questioning Bill Belichick here, but I thought that was such a stupid decision because they ended up throwing a pass, tackled on the one, and then they called the timeout then. And I think they only had one more play. I think if you call that timeout on the 13-yard line, you potentially got all 4 shots. And potentially, if your first one is tackled inbounds, you still have a little bit of time to go and spike it and be on the 1 or the 2. I didn't think that was a great decision. And then to run it again with Cam, I think Seattle had obviously already had it twice. Was it 3 rushing touchdowns he got? Was it 2? Oh, 2, sorry, yeah. So he'd already done it twice. And then it was just like the same play again. I just thought it was a bit poor. I thought they could have come up with something a little bit more creative and really sold the run and sold that Cam was going and then done something off of it.
I mean, it was true fashion of these New England Seattle games now, where it comes down to the last play on the 1-yard line and they choose to run it rather than pass it, or they choose to pass it rather than run it, and they failed. Yeah.
Well, it was Super Bowl 48, wasn't it, where he was going, this is what you should have done with Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
the person who's going to... I remember it was... So that happened Super Bowl, and I think 2 years later they played each other in Foxborough. And it came down to a situation where actually Seattle ended up running it and they should have passed it. And now we've got to this one and they've run it and they should have passed it at the end. And well, this is just how it's going to be. But these Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick chess matches that we get to watch,
they're
so entertaining.
Yeah.
What they reckon happened in the Super Bowl, isn't it, is that they think that Seattle were expecting New England to call a timeout.
Yeah.
And when they didn't, it spooked them because they were expecting to have loads of time to think about it. And suddenly there's no timeout and they started to rush. So they reckon that's where Belichick did them with the coaching because he knew they would expect him to take a timeout, so he just run with the play.
Well, our time is running down, so I'm going to very quickly. We'll just run over the fact that New Orleans lost against the team that they probably should have beaten this week. I mean,
don't look great.
They don't look good without Michael Thomas, which I think I'm quite shocked about. They've just seemed to cease being able to move it.
The Raiders look really good with their running game.
I am.
Jacobs is really good, isn't he? Jacobs is one of the best running backs in the league at the moment.
Yeah, I've got on the other side. I've got clearly what John Gruden's building is working now.
Yeah.
Derek Carr had a great game. You know, he had 3 passing touchdowns.
Waller was superb.
Oh man, Darren Waller, phenomenal.
I was really disappointed Kittle couldn't play and had to put Waller in, and he, him and Dak Prescott won me the game.
But yeah, Vegas are 2-0 and New Orleans are 1-1.
I don't think New Orleans have played all that good in both games, and it got me thinking maybe this NFC South that everyone was expecting to be a really tough division, and there's going to be 2 teams in the NFC Championship that I know some people have predicted. Maybe it's actually not that good. Maybe the Saints and Bucks, neither of them are that great. I was never high on the Bucks coming into this year. I was expecting the Saints to still be rolling, but a lot does hinge on Drew Brees, and maybe time's finally caught up with him, similar to what we saw with Manning.
I mean, like we're going to say for, I think, a lot of these first few weeks now, and like Paul's already said multiple times, no preseason, and this, and obviously Sean Payton might working out his playbook. He's not had as much time to figure out all the tweaks that he needs to make. I think by week 4 or 5, they'll probably be rolling again.
You're going to start to see some, particularly with teams with new coaches who lack talent to start with, which is probably why they got new coaches. Meeting established teams like Baltimore and Kansas, there's going to be some real good idings given out. Real good idings, the likes of when Carolina and Washington play. If they're playing decent sides, they're going to get smashed. Continuity.
Yeah.
That is key. Continuity. Those teams with continuity.
We was hammering that home last week. Your point.
Yeah. It is. That continuity will start to come into effect more now because they're hitting mid-season form far quicker than the other sides with the new coaches who are going to be week 10 and the 11, 12, and it's going to be too late for them.
Yeah. So so that's we've wrapped up quite a few games from week 2 there. Looking forward, week 3 has kicked off with a Dolphins W.
Did well.
The good win for the Dolphins.
And then I'm going to get on to my week 2. Last week I highlighted an offensive player of the week and a defensive player of the week. I'm going to give it to 2 different players. I'm trying to vary my players every week. I've got Aaron Jones on the offensive side for the Green Bay Packers. Yeah. 168 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns, and he's got 68 receiving yards with a touchdown on the receiving end as well.
And 45 points on fantasy killed me.
Yeah. And my defensive player of the week is what I feel like I'm going to try and do with this one is because obviously you see the defensive players such as like your Nick Bosa's, and they get a lot of media credit. Is your people like I highlighted Jerome Baker for the Dolphins last week. I'm actually going with an LA Rams player. Is it Mika Kaiser?
Yeah.
With a stat line, he had 16 tackles, he had a pass deflected and a forced fumble for a great performance against the Eagles.
Yeah, it was funny really because going into that week, one of our beat writers for the Rams was kind of not calling him out, but he was questioning missed tackles in the first game, and they both sort of got into it a little bit on Twitter, and then he goes out and puts in I think he was NFC Player of the Week. the defense. So yeah, no, he had a good game and it was a big part of why the Rams got a dub.
Yeah, and I've got one last thing that I gave out last week. It's my fantasy award for each week, which is Lucky Bastard of the Week, based on the essential that in fantasy someone gets lucky every week. And this week, I'm sorry guys, but I'm giving it to myself for having 103 points on my bench and still managing to win. So yeah, that was a fun time.
You do know that this week you'll probably have 4 points in your bench and 24 points playing.
Yep, and I'm aware of that.
It's really hard to have 2 monstrous weeks back to back.
I've already passed 24, so don't start doing that. Or is it 22 I'm on now? Right. Yeah, so if you're looking to keep up with the Bandits Fantasy League, you can always go and follow us on Facebook. That's in the description. Thanks for joining me, guys. We'll see you next time.
No problem.
Right.
Cheers. Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe for more content from us, and check out all of our social media links down in the description: Spotify, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Remember to watch all the other content on the Bandits Show, and see you next time.